Welcome to Drinking and Driving. Here at Drinking and Driving, we'd like to remind you that drinking is fun and driving is fun. Just don't do them together. Have fun, but be safe. Hey guys, I'm Joe Yarbrough, and I'm here with a very special guest here. I've got Florian Coupland. He's a co-founder of Urban Chestnut Brewery here in St. Louis, Missouri. Right now, we are sitting at the location 4465 Manchester Avenue, St. Louis, Missouri, 63110. There's another location on 3229 Washington Avenue, St. Louis, Missouri, 63103. That was the first location I ever went to and where I found out about these guys. And I'm actually very stoked to talk to them today. So, Florian, how you doing today?
Doing great. Thanks for coming in.
Yeah, it's awesome. I mean, just to let you know, guys, I've got a colorful assortment of beers, and I'm starting to drool a little bit. So we'll definitely get around to that real soon.
We can definitely open one while we talk if you'd like.
Yeah, I mean, if we get parched, we'll definitely go for that one. So I do know a little bit of background. Just because I was like literally up the street. I mean, Washington Avenue. I used to live, I don't know, just a couple blocks away. So I've walked to that one, which is a really cool thing about the town of St. Louis. You just got where I used to live. I don't even know what the breweries are like anymore, but I could definitely have walked to a handful of breweries just from where I lived. And if I had really good shoes, then maybe a handful more. But, you know, so this is really awesome. One of the main ones here in St. Louis that I was looking to talk to. So just kind of, I guess the first thing, I know the old location, and I don't know if this is true. It looked like it. This is just me being an outsider. Did it used to have something to do with a church, the location there on Washington? Or was it just right next to a church? Why was it? Yeah.
There's a church across the street. The building next to it is actually an insurance company. It just looks like a church.
I swear it looked like a church.
I think the way that operated is that it was an insurance company in the 1920s, and it was just an office building essentially with a tower next as part of the building. But our building over there was a garage. It was a gas station, a repair shop. That part of town used to have a lot of car manufacturing back in the days. So I guess that was part of the whole scene back then. And then stood empty for quite some time, I think. And the current owners redeveloped it, and then we got it and installed the brewery in almost 10 years ago, I guess. Now.
Yeah, I mean, it's been, I think it was 2011, somewhere around there?
Yeah, we opened up 2011, started doing some of the installation in late 2010. So we're getting close to the 10-year anniversary.
Yeah, I remember because, like I said, I lived in St. Louis at that time. So I was like, wait, you're telling me I can walk to yet another brewery? And I thought I'd died and gone to heaven at that point. I remember seeing, you know, the different, even the looks of the beers. You had these ones that were orange, and they had the ones that were blue. You know, there was like rebellion and reverence. What was kind of the mindset there?
Reverence and revolution. So I'm German-born, grew up close to Munich. Went to the University of Weinstefan. I guess it would have been natural to just focus on German-style beers, but I didn't want to do just that. I wanted to kind of keep it open and be able to do some other beer styles as well. I've lived in England. I've lived in Belgium for a little bit. Traveled around quite a bit, so I appreciate other beer styles and other beer traditions. The reverence part is where we try to recreate very classic beer styles, not just German, as I said, English, Scottish, Czech.
So kind of true to form.
True to style,
sure.
Using ingredients that brewers would use in those areas. And the Revolution series is where we try to come up with new recipes, combining new ingredients, being a little bit experimental to some degree.
Okay, and I remember this is obviously, you know, it's been a couple of years since I first fell in love with the brand, but I remember the name Schnickelfritz. I love the name, and I didn't actually know what it meant at first. Of course, I had to do the old Googles, and pretty much, what is Schnickelfritz?
Schnickelfritz is our Bavarian-style wheat beer, and Schnickelfritz basically stands for rascal. It's just a kind of a fun name. Growing up in Germany, I had never heard that name, so I'm not sure if it's a term that was brought with them, that immigrants brought with them, or if it's from a part of Germany that I'm not familiar with specifically. So I'm not totally sure of the origin of that word, but certainly is a fun name for our wheat beer.
I honestly, I mean, just that name, I was just like, you know, I don't even know what that means, but it just sounds fun. And the fact that it means rascal, I mean, and why not? So, and I'm assuming that wouldn't be a reverent style. That would
That would be a reverence.
It would be a reverence.
Yeah, it's
even with a name like that. Yeah.
It really is more of it references the style, not so much the name itself.
I've got
It's
you.
actually the Reverence Series number 2, so it's the second Reverence beer that we've ever brewed.
Yeah, and of course the Zwickle, that's the number 1.
Yes, that is correct.
The OG right there.
Do you want to try some?
I mean, if we're going to try, I mean,
may as well, I guess. Right?
I have already talked quite a bit, and today. So I mean, if I could wet the whistle, that'd be great. So
I guess we'll start with our Zwickle.
All right. So we got a nice and just to let you know, and everyone who's kind of listened to me up to this point would know this. We're not a beer insider. We don't need to know the temperature of the this and all those things, but. Is anything you think would be of interest? What's that?
I mean, I think Zwickle means it basically stands for the sampling valve on a fermentation or on a fermentation tank, and it basically refers to the beer being unfiltered, as natural as possible, as you would drink it right at the brewery. So it's unfiltered. It has a little bit of turbidity to it. It's a very classic style. Unfiltered Helles, basically. We're importing our own Pilsner malt from Bavaria, and we are importing hops from Hallertau that we use exclusively for that beer. So just a very classic Bavarian-style lager, I guess, is how you would describe it.
And like the lagers, I mean, that's kind of my more of a daily driver for me. If I'm gonna go in, a lager is just something that I would have often. Obviously, I want to try the weird maple jalapeno, twice infused, some weird. That's fun to try. But as far as I guess a daily driver, I mean, like I wouldn't mind driving a Ferrari, but that's not going to be a practical family car for me. This to me just it's kind of a practical beer. It's something you could have with anything.
Yeah, it's kind of your daily beer. There's definitely some subtle flavors and aromas, and you can definitely get a little bit of that hop aroma. But overall, it's just a great balance between malt sweetness and hop bitterness, and just kind of a nice session beer, I guess.
Yeah, I mean, I could have many a session with this particular beer, and by the way.
That is the plan, and that's the idea behind that beer, man.
Just kind of obviously, 2011, you opened the Washington location, which was it's smaller than where we are currently. Which I don't know if you guys have been here, but this place is mahusive, as my friends in Australia will say. I've always said massive, but when I went to Australia, I said mahusive. I was like, I kind of like that more, oddly enough. But yeah, so this place is mahusive. What can you tell me about this particular location?
So this building used to be, well, I guess the part of the building that we're in, I think originally it was a paint factory in the 20s. And then it was turned into a warehouse. A couple additional building parts were added on in the 80s and 90s. And just before we took it over, it was basically a warehouse and did need a little bit of reconfiguring, some new floors, added a bunch of windows, changed the facade. So there was quite a bit of work that we did about 5 years ago. And obviously installing a brewing system here, getting the taste room, the beer hall set up with the long bar and the brewing system behind it, and installation of our packaging line. So it was kind of a pretty big project to get things going. Fortunately, the warehouse part was already there, so we didn't have to change much there. But yeah, overall, it was quite a bit of work that was done.
Labor of love there, huh?
Absolutely. It was fun to see that come together, working with the architects on kind of getting their idea of what could happen with this building was pretty fascinating.
So I went to a brewery that had multiple lives before, an older building, all that kind of stuff, similar to this. And of course, St. Louis, that's the story of St. Louis. Like everything that, this used to be, even when I lived here, not too far from the other location, it used to be, it was called the Motor Lofts. It used to be a motor part manufacturing facility. I mean, they made stuff for cars there. And then of course somebody said, hey, people could live in this building, and I lived there for, a few years there. So yeah, I mean, so it is cool seeing, the repurposing of a lot of these buildings. And of course, this area, this Grove area, just, it's nice because I haven't been back in 5 years. It's nice seeing some of my favorite places still here, like Sanctuary down the road. I went there years ago and I was like, man, I like that. I kind of got into those, the fancy cocktails, and they're still here. So that's nice. And obviously you're still here. In addition to being still here, you're still growing. I mean, I see a place right next door. It's called the URB, and that's the Urban Research Brewing. So you've gotten even bigger since the last I was here. Well, not you. I mean, I'm not going to insult your size, but yeah. So the location. What's the URB?
That's basically our way to get our beer drinkers involved in our development process of new beers. So we basically offer up surveys of 2 to 4 beers at any given time, change it up every couple of weeks, and have people try those beers and then give us feedback specifically on those 2 to 4 beers that we have on offer at the time.
Okay. And when they offer the feedback, do they just, fill out a card and go 1 to 10 dots, or how do we do that?
We have our own online system, basically, where we are able to put together surveys and then collect the data and then also analyze the data afterwards. So we've had some projects where not every time, obviously, that beer actually graduates to a beer that gets bottled or canned, but we've had several projects where that was the case, where we kind of try to refine the recipe, or we try to see what types of flavors people prefer, what people are looking for, what they like to drink, and so on. So all types of
I love that you have, you're not even like hiding that you are our research and development team. I mean, I think that's genius. Like, hey, you guys, and why would I know what you want to drink?
Yeah, I mean,
exactly. I mean,
I certainly have opinions.
You're like a weatherman at that point. Like, yeah, it's probably gonna rain today. But if you just straight up can ask the people, which, I mean, that's genius. And the fact that you've incorporated technology into the process, like you don't have to you don't have somebody there with a tally sheet and saying, okay, this one with an average score of, no, you've got, I mean, that's genius.
Kind of all works together, and I think people enjoy it. I've been kind of surprised by the positive response that we've gotten. Initially, we didn't plan on offering new beers every couple of weeks, but people definitely want to come back and try new things. And yeah, combined with the pizza that we're offering there, it's been very, very popular.
So what would you say as far as your core beers that are available 365 days, roughly how many core beers do you have there?
Oh, I'd have to probably about half a dozen, I'd say. 3 to 4 making up the majority of the volume, I would say, and then a few others. And then also a bunch of seasonals. So throughout the year, I haven't counted this year yet, but the last couple years, we definitely averaged over 50 beers a year.
Oh, wow.
New, not necessarily always new. It might have been recipes that we brought back, but on average, we have a new offering on tap at one of the 3 breweries.
Beautiful. I mean, and why not, right? Just get it out there, and especially with your own research and development place
Sure.
next door. I mean, you're going to be able to really fast track a beer that might have been like, should we do this? Shouldn't we do this? Well, you can look, you got numbers. Hey, we should do this, or thank God we didn't do that, or so. I think
absolutely.
That's a great thing. I mean, I'm impressed. I haven't been to every single brewery around. I'm assuming somebody's got something like that, but this is the first time I've seen this particular location. Do you know what was that place before?
It was just a restaurant.
Just a restaurant?
Yeah, it has been restaurants over the last few years.
Okay. And that's just part of the kind of getting this area, back up. For those of you who've not been to St. Louis, there's a lot of brick here. A lot of brick and a lot of older buildings. Even Melbourne, where I'm from, we've got our brewery. It's a historic area. That's kind of the branding, and that's one of the oldest buildings. And it was 1892 is when the building was built. And that's like one of the oldest buildings we have in the area. And the friends that I'm staying with, their house is probably as old as our historic downtown area. So it's just kind of an older city. So it's got a rich history like that, and so it's kind of neat seeing when they do have areas that this could have been in disuse and disrepair, and now it's so I'm telling you, you guys got to come down here. This place is gorgeous. You should definitely do that. So we've talked a little bit about the history of the buildings and all that stuff, but what about your history? What makes you tick as far as beer? Why beer?
Why beer? Yeah, as I said before, I grew up in Germany. I was always interested in chemistry and biology, and always wanted to do something in that field, and then started working at a local brewery, basically just to make some money during my summer, during time off from school. Yeah, and kind of got stuck there. They offered me a position as a brewer and maltster apprentice So I did that and then decided to go to university. University of Munich offers a brewing science program. So I did that. Was able to work in Belgium, the UK, Germany at various breweries, and then ended up here in the US after several years. So kind of have a fairly international background and enjoy going back. And we have a brewery over in Germany as well that we purchased about 5 years ago as well.
And the same branding, same.
It's the same name, similar branding, a little bit more traditional, geared towards the German market. Very small, very local brewery, close to Munich, about half an hour north, right in the Hallertau hop growing region. I actually just got back from there on Monday. And we make Zwickel there. We make a hoppy Helles. We make a pale ale and various seasonals as well. So kind of a local offering, and that's been really received pretty positively as well from the locals.
What's the German market like for an IPA? Do they embrace that? I mean, because I know German purity laws and things like that. I mean, how do they deal with that?
Yeah, the German market is kind of interesting. It's very conservative. There's been some kind of a craft beer movement that's kind of slowly been developing, but there's still over 1,000 breweries in Germany. So the situation was quite a bit different from the US, with not a lot of breweries that had survived they've been over time.
Yeah, over in Germany, they're well established and not. I mean, some breweries older than the U.S. So yeah.
So quite a bit different. The consumers are not quite as interested in experimenting as much. So there are definitely IPAs on the market. And as I said, we do a pale ale. We brew that over there, but it's definitely geared towards more traditional styles. Helles, wheat beer, Pilsner. Those are kind of the three main ones that probably make up, I'm guessing, probably 80-90% of the total beer volume, something like that.
Yeah, and honestly, I mean, that's my personal flavor is, I like a Pilsner, I like a lager, I like something nice and clean drinking. I'm adventurous to try something, like I might go bungee jumping, but I don't want to be a professional bungee jumper, I guess, this kind of thing. So that's where I'm like, if there's an IPA, hey, I'll try it. And I appreciate the flavor of an IPA, but I'm not an IPA drinker. Like I said, I'll try it and be like, oh, that was interesting. Hey, skydiving. I've gone skydiving, but I'm not a professional skydiver. So it was like, hey, it was cool. I might do it again, but on that same note, I'm not going to necessarily live on the wild side. Some people, hey, that's where they live on the wild side, and more power to them. Then again, there's the other side, which I actually kind of, I've talked to friends about this. It's kind of like the age range. So you've got your the Generation X, where a lot of them, and even where it kind of bleeds over into baby boomers and stuff like that, they drink beer. It doesn't mean flavor. It's just they drink beer because it kills brain cells, and that's what they're looking for. Then you get the super millennial, where if it's got the weirdest thing you've ever heard in it, and it's got this flavor that's so complex and etc., that's why they're drinking. And then like the added benefit is the alcohol. So, and I fall somewhere in between there. I'm just shy of 40. So I'm not the old guard, but I definitely, there's no man bun on top of my head here, so there's no extreme. So I can enjoy, hey, I mean, I sold a house not too long ago, and I drank a bunch of Rolling Rock while I was painting. There's no air conditioner, and that stuff's like water. So I drank a lot of very light, watery beer, and it served its purpose, while I was doing that. But on the same note, I love some of these deep flavors. So somewhere in between those two extremes, that's kind of where I lie. And of course, a lot of your reverence kind of falls where my flavor palette was, which is why when you guys moved in just up the street from where I used to live, I was happy. So what made you, obviously, I know you had the background in beer. What was the thing where you're like, all right, here we go. Here's the big jump, and I'm doing it. It's mine now.
I kind of had been dreaming about that for quite some time. I did work for Anheuser-Busch here in town, and at some point saw the market developing, met my business partner, Dave, who I worked together with at Anheuser-Busch. Yeah, I guess we just started talking about putting a plan together, and then finally, I guess, made it happen.
So did it start off as like abstract, like, wouldn't it be cool if ... and then like, hey man, we should really look into ... and then, hey, I found this location. What do you think about? Is that kind of where we went? Or?
Yeah, I think so. I mean, I'm honestly kind of fuzzy on the exact first time we talked about that.
Too many beers between then and now.
Possibly too many beers in between. And been 12-ish years or something like that. Yeah, I mean, the idea was there, and we just kind of started talking and refining the plans over several months, and then found a location that we thought could work, and started putting it together.
So now that you've got some time here, I'm here. I don't know. It's a Wednesday. It's not even 2:00 right now. And you got a pretty good crowd for the middle of the workday. A lot of people playing hooky from work right now. There's a lot of people in the tap room. So, I mean, which is obviously that's what you want when you're brewing a beer. You want people to drink the beer, because if not, why are you doing this? How large is your system here?
So the brewing system here is a 60 barrel. We started out with a 20 barrel system in our Midtown brewery. That was the original location. And the 60 barrel system here, we do typically 2 to 3 brews a day, 5 days a week. So it's quite a bit of beer that gets made here at this facility.
Absolutely. So you've got that much that you're making here. You're still brewing pretty regularly over there, or do you have stuff that you only brew there?
Yeah, we kind of divided up a little bit. The 20 barrel system, the original at the original location, gives us the flexibility to make some beers that we don't sell don't sell that much of, some seasonals. And the new 60 barrel system is kind of focused on the larger brands, Zwickle, Urban Underdog, Schnickel Fritz, a couple of the IPAs, and some of the larger seasonals.
So I did talk to the guys over at Schlafly. So they talked about kind of, because they've got, multiple locations. So they said they've got the money location, and then they've got the kind of the playground, if you will, location where they can kind of experiment a little. And I mean, even that, and that's what I want to ask about the URB in a minute. But so is that kind of how you have this going, where you just do a lot of the big stuff here and get to play a little bit over there?
Yeah, I guess to some degree. Obviously, it makes sense to do new stuff on a smaller system to see how people respond to it. And since we have the 2-3 outlets where we can serve beers, people always are asking for different new offerings at those places. So it's nice to be able to rotate different beers throughout the year and offer those up. I wouldn't necessarily say that it's just experimental stuff at the original location, because we do make a lot of draft offerings, and as I said, some of the smaller seasonals. It just gives us a lot more flexibility, and that's what we keep.
And is there stuff that you make at both locations?
We do. Zwickle is one of them. Schnickel Fritz. Those are kind of the two main ones. Just to be consistent, to make sure that we're making the beer. There are 2 different systems, but we do use the same ingredients. We do use the same process, but there's still always potential for some slight flavor differences. So by making those beers at both locations, it kind of allows us to calibrate our systems a little bit. Just allows us to fill
and consistency.
Sure.
So now this URB, do you bring stuff from the other locations to there, or do you brew stuff there, or how's that work?
We do both. So some of the offerings that we have there, we may use something that was already brewed, or we may blend something together, or we may dry hop beers that we did make for another purpose, or we may actually make them over there as well. So it's kind of a mixture of both.
Cool. And what do you have over there?
There's a 2 hectoliter system, so close to 2 barrels.
Okay. Okay, cool. So nice little play thing over there. Yeah. And obviously, like we mentioned, that's the research and development. So that's even a good size system. 2 barrels is a good size system for there. And so now we've got our 3 locations. Obviously, you've got a good chunk of the street. You plan on going even further down the street?
Yeah, we're good for now. Got a little bit of space left in this building. We set it up so that it's kind of expandable. Brew house is kind of what it is, and then we've got some additional space for additional fermentation tanks and stuff like that.
So I know a lot of breweries have and I'm going to guess this before you tell me. A lot of breweries have their number one seller, and it's usually by and far. Like this brewery, they make 10 beers, but this one's their number one seller by quite a bit. Makes 40% of their total revenue type thing. I have this feeling with you guys. I don't know if this is just a guess. This is me just off the cuff here. I know that you obviously you have a clear one that's definitely more, but I don't think, this is just me, that it's making up like a big giant chunk. I feel like you've got a few. My guess, these are just guesses, just based on my liking, my flavor, etc. I'm gonna say Schnickel Fritz and Swickle are really up there as a. I don't know which one. If I had to guess, I might say Swickle, but I feel like they're. This is just once again. I have no data. That's my guess. As your two top. I feel like one of the, and I could be wrong as all get out, but where am I at?
Swickle is definitely number one. Number two would be Urban Underdog, which is kind of closing in pretty quickly. And then Schnickel Fritz is number three. So Swickle probably somewhere in the 30-35% range in terms of total volume that we make. Urban Underdog is getting close to that, and then Schnickel Fritz probably in the 15 to 20%.
Now, Urban Underdog, it wasn't here when I was roaming these streets. Apparently, it's kind of. How long have you had this one?
That's a good question. We did brew this fairly early on, but kind of a here and there thing, and then decided to start canning it. I honestly couldn't tell you. Probably 4 or 5 years ago, I'm guessing. Okay. Something like that.
Yeah, which there you go. That's about when I left, because I used to be pretty regular over at the Washington location. So,
and maybe the one reason is we don't sell it on draft, so that's cans only currently.
There you go.
May not have necessarily seen it at the Washington location.
Gotcha. And I haven't been there since I've only been in town for about 36 hours. And you're my second interview here. I'd like to sneak one more in, but we'll see how that goes. I mean, I'm definitely going to have to get on that one.
Should we try that one?
Yeah, absolutely. And where are we sitting at as far as the ABV on this particular one?
I think most beers that we currently have on the table are right around 5%, so they're in that kind of session beer
drinkable
range. Yeah. This is more of a classic American style lager, so we do use corn in that, but definitely more flavorful than the ones you're going to be finding on the market. So closer to what probably was brewed about 100 years ago, I'd say.
That's clean.
Yeah, very clean.
That's very.
You get a little bit of hop note, but it's pretty subtle. But it's just kind of, again, another nice beer, very good balance overall.
I can see for a daily driver, I can see why this one's making up some time there. I mean, it's extremely clean. I mean, and it looks beautiful too. Just light, clear. I mean, what you would expect from a very drinkable beer.
Yeah, I definitely have a lot of that in my fridge. That's kind of my go-to.
So, and where's the Urban Underdog? What's with the name there?
It was just kind of fun name that we came up with. Yeah, we're just kind of being playful. If you look at the branding, it's a little bit different from the Reverence Revolution series. We don't actually specifically say that it falls into one of those categories. I guess it is in a way a reverence beer because it's a more or less classic style that has been around for quite some time here in North America and is pretty dominant across the globe right now. It's just our take on it with some. You mentioned some of the ingredients there. So in the U.S., you could say this was reverence, but maybe over the location overseas, that might be the revolution because it kind of falls outside of their guidelines. That would definitely be a revolution over there. Although I think if people would try the beer, they would not be able to kind of pick out anything negative. It's just a perception there.
Yeah, and once again going back to the purity laws with the corn in there. So, but yeah, I mean honestly, it's beautiful. It's nice pale color. I can't say anything negative about it. I understand why you have a lot in your fridge, and I can also understand why on my trip back to Florida how there's going to be some in my checked baggage.
Yeah, we've. As I said, we released it a few years ago, and it's become very popular and definitely one of the brewers' favorites, I have to say.
I could see that. So anything about your actual brewing system, anything unique to talk about, anything cool we've got there?
The system here at the Grove, the system actually was made in Germany. We do have the capability to do decoction mashes, which we actually do on our Zwickle. So we're able to boil part of the mash. We do produce or grow up our own yeast. So we have a -80 C freezer where we store several hundred cultures and then pull them out, grow them up in our propagation system, and then introduce them to the brewing process. That's a little bit unique. Not every brewery does that.
I mean, when you mentioned chemistry, you didn't tell me you were a mad scientist there with with your own yeast here, just kind of growing. You got a whole yeast farm. I mean, that's pretty awesome. I know a lot of people that I've talked to. They buy it where they can get it, but the fact that you got your own, that's kind of a neat. I mean, definitely something unique to you guys. I know not everybody can do that.
Yeah, definitely gives us a little bit more control over the process. As I said, we have a pretty nice collection of different strains, so we pull out different strains every so often, and always try to use a specific strain for the style. So if we make an English ale, we try to use a traditional English ale yeast. We've got various German style lager yeasts that we've used in the past. Yeah, Belgian style yeasts. So all different kinds.
Have you tried brewing the exact same beer using different yeast? Maybe next door at the URB, say this is the exact same beer with a different yeast. Have you done that?
Yes. Yeah, it's pretty. Again, yeast is a pretty major flavor driver, especially in lighter beers, and you can create beers that are totally different. You wouldn't even think that they're the same.
Exactly. You say you don't even know how closely related these guys are, except for one tiny. I mean, literally one little microscopic change at this point, and you end up with completely different flavor profile there.
Yeah, I think sometimes yeast doesn't get a lot of credit, but it certainly has a huge impact on all of the whole process, the flavor, and the way the beer is going to look and taste and smell afterwards.
I mean, without yeast, there is no beer. So I mean, that's my best friend. I got billions of best friends.
Absolutely.
So now, obviously you are known for a lot of these drinkable beers. You got anything that's kind of out there that you've gone, even if it's only made it to the
we do have stronger things that we offer up. We've got a few doppelbocks that we brew kind of here and there.
Do we have any available? Not that I want to drink them right now, but I've got a good friend who was actually on one of my previous episodes. He's talking. He's like, why is it that doppelbocks aren't brewed very often by craft breweries? And so this was actually a conversation I've had in the last week.
We have some, but it's sitting in a tank at the German brewery right now. So,
all right. Well, I guess I'm gonna have to go get a plane ticket. Hold on, I'll be right back.
Yeah, it's probably not the most the people's choice. I don't like to drink a lot of them because obviously they're strong, but I do like kind of the malty, complex flavors that they offer. I just had some out of the tank. The beer's still pretty young because we're not going to release it until December, and it just has already started kind of develop those really rich, malty, complex notes, and it was really a lot of fun to try that and
nice.
So still have to wait a little bit more for that, and as I said, it's going to only be available in Germany.
Oh, come on now. All right. I mean, I'm going to have to look up the address and all that stuff. So just from my knowledge, I mean, if I do happen to be in Germany, or a listener of mine happens to be in Germany, roughly when would you say that'd be available over there?
Yeah, December is kind of middle of December into January, February.
All right, so if you're doing Christmas in Germany,
will be the time to be able to get the Doppelbock. Yes,
there you go,
absolutely.
Guys. That's awesome. Yeah, I mean, I haven't had a Doppelbock in a while, but I know what you mean. It's it's like you mentioned, it's got some character, it's got some alcohol, all those kind of things. So it's not like these two that we've tasted here where they're very nice and daily driver kind of stuff, but they are. It's just like I don't eat ice cream every day. I don't. I mean, I'm not ripped or anything, but I don't eat ice cream every day. But sometimes, hey man, I wouldn't mind having some ice cream. It's not something I should or would have every single day, but you know what? The right time, the right setting, why not? So
nice nightcap, or
I'm in.
Goes with different.
I'm in.
Dessert, for example.
I'm not gonna mow the lawn and drink some Doppelbock along with that. We've got the Doppelbock, which I'm a little bit sad that I'm not in Germany at this exact moment. Or sorry, 2 months from now. We'll see what happens. Hey, maybe I hit the lotto and I will be there. So the outside of your guys' beer, what's something that another craft, not necessarily a specific brewer, and it can be. I mean, however you want to answer this question, but a few beers or styles of beers, something not, of course, outside of your guys. Obviously, you should be excited about your own beer, but outside of yours, if you're like, man, let me try that, or hey, that's a really good one, or something like that. So somebody else's beer other than yours that you would actually be excited about.
What I do like is when I'm in England, a nice cask conditioned ale. You can't find a lot of those anymore, unfortunately, because it really depends on the public and how they treat those casks, and if they are fairly fresh and go through enough beer to keep a fresh cask on. But yeah, just trying that in a pub, that's something I really enjoy. Another one that I really like is Orval from a brewery in the south of Belgium. Very complex, made with Brettanomyces, dry hopped. So it's a very complex beer that kind of ages beautifully. And they actually have a restaurant next to the monastery where the beer is brewed, and they offer up different ages of beer that get stored. And you can try the kind of fresh, a little bit sweeter example, and then
is it those guys?
It's this. Yes.
That's it's funny. Like, these are literally. It was in my Safari history of my phone. I was literally just talking about these guys the other day. Yeah, it's funny you mentioned those guys. I'm like, obviously I said it incorrectly. I said Orval, like the popcorn Orval Redenbacher, but that's just me being ignorant. But yeah, it's funny. I had those just sitting there. So you said, I was like, wait a minute, that sounds like probably the right way to say what I've been butchering for who knows how long. Yeah, I love those guys. I mean, that's great stuff. And I mean, not to plug somebody, but yeah, they do Orval Day. At certain locations and all that stuff, and some of the proceeds go toward like water purification and things like that. People getting clean water. So I was like, man, I'm drinking beer and I'm a humanitarian. So I mean, that's a win-win right there. Like drinking for a cause, why not? So
it works out well. Yeah.
It's funny you would say those guys, and they were sitting on my phone because I was just talking about them the other day. So it's kind of funny. But yeah, that's great beer. So now, just kind of along those lines, so the other end, so it's, as opposed to something you're excited about, say you're kind of at the 7-Eleven and you're like, if this has ever happened to you, I don't have beer at home, I should pick up some beer. What's our favorite gas station beer?
That's never happens to me because I've got unlimited supplies.
Like Willy Wonka saying, which chocolate would you like, Willy Wonka?
I have to say, it's hard to sometimes find good quality beer because sometimes the stuff sits around for so long. Yeah. But I like IPAs. I certainly enjoy those. I like different hop flavors. What I'm not a particular fan of is New England IPAs because to me sometimes they get kind of that oniony, garlicky aroma.
Those are
flavor
getting really big right now too.
Yeah, those are quite popular. But like a nice clean tasting IPA, that's something I would enjoy.
Yeah, so it's funny because I've talked to different people and they've gone whatever, they've gone different ways on this. So, and I mentioned, I live in Florida, so some guys I talked to the other day down there, there's a gas station, and I don't think they have them around here. They just invaded our area. It's called Wawa, W-A-W-A. I'd never heard of it 3 years ago. All of a sudden I hear Wawa, and I know I'm plugging now some company. Maybe they need help. I don't know, But so I went to a Wawa gas station, and I went there, and they had 16-ounce can of Victory Golden Monkey, which is which is a triple or triple. How do we say that right?
I say triple, but
yeah, I know 3. That's all. Triple. So it's a triple in a 16-ounce can, and I was like, this is a gas station? Like, so it made me rethink my idea of gas station beer. I was like, oh, wow, that's actually kind of neat to find at a gas station. Now, I did not find that at a 7-Eleven. I mean, well, down in Florida, which you guys don't get here, which I have some friends who live around here that I think, honestly, some of the stuff with beer, too, is if it's regional, people will get excited about it even if it's not good because it's kind of something you can't readily get in your area, so that makes it better than it is. So, like, there's one, and it's not a bad beer at all. So I'm not knocking them. I wouldn't even mind talking to those guys. But Yingling is really big in my area. Like some people, when they're like, hey, I'm going to get a craft beer, if you will, they go with Yingling, which, and according to their box, and I've not done my own research, says they're America's oldest brewery. Take from that what you will, but it's been available in Florida for a few years. And that's a lot of people's gas station beer. And it's not bad at all. I mean, it's very drinkable. it's not as light as, you know, some of your neighbors up the street here. It's not the same as there. So it's kind of a pleasant change from some of those offerings. But yeah, so that's kind of my, with the gas station beer, that would be my, if I was going to go to a gas station and get beer, it'd probably be the Yingling. It's decent, you know. When I found something, you know, a Belgian triple just sitting there in a 16-ounce can, I was like, maybe this is a cool gas station. I mean, like how do you see that in, you know, and it's actually a very good triple. I enjoyed it. So, and you mentioned being in Belgium, and I honestly, when I first got into beer, you know, I'd heard of Germany and things like that, but I didn't even realize that Belgium had an extreme, and this is just my ignorance, that had an extremely rich beer history. And I mean, like, literally monks are making beer. I mean, talking about doing God's work right there. I mean, it doesn't get any better than that.
Yeah, definitely a pretty diverse beer culture, different styles. Pretty interesting. Lots of breweries, and definitely fun to explore.
Going through Europe, it's, especially now that the borders are more open than, you know, they would have been 30 years ago or more. I mean, you can literally do this little lap and be in like 5 different countries in a very short period of time, and they all have their own. There might be some similarities, but some of them may be like wholly unique. You know, so it's just kind of it's really neat to see that over there. But yeah, I did have a very, actually when I used to live here, so probably about 5 years ago, like toward the end of when I was living here, I was really into a lot of those Belgian beers. And I mean, like, you know, like those quads. I remember the first time I ever had a quadruple, I was speechless. I was like, what is this? I mean, this is, yeah. So I was very, so you guys, have you done or have you thought of doing a quadruple?
I don't believe we've done one. We've done some other Belgian styles, but you know, I think that one particularly we have not. Although it's hard to, because as I said before, we do quite a few beers throughout over the last 10 years. So but I don't think we've done one of those yet.
Yeah. I mean, at one point, like that was my, you know, that was kind of my jam for a bit. Which obviously that can't be a daily drinker, or, you know, you're sprinting to the finish line when you go something high ABV there. What's one of the higher ABV things you've released here?
I mean, 8 to 10%. We've done some barrel aged stuff, so kind of all over the place. But the vast majority of beers definitely is in the 5% range, I'd say.
Okay.
We've got IPAs that we're offering in the 7 to 8% ABV range, but for the most part, it's all around 5%.
Beautiful. So what we'll do here is we'll take a quick little break, and then we'll come back, and then we'll just kind of focus a lot on these other offerings you've got here. So we'll be back momentarily.
Now it's time to drink a beer.
And we're back. So I'm just sitting here once again at Urban Chestnut. We're here at the beautiful location, 4465 Manchester Avenue, St. Louis, Missouri, 63110. And we're in a segment that I've cleverly called Drink a Beer. I know, I'm a super clever person. I'm here with a very well-visioned man, because I couldn't see some of the stuff he can see, but he's a good man here. So I've got Florian Coupland here. So we're here. We're going to just drink a few beers, maybe talk about the beers a little bit. Yeah, go from there. So what do you got for me?
Guess we'll open this one. So we have we just canned this one. It's basically a Vienna style lager. So it's a little bit darker than your average 5% lager. Very popular in Mexico. And that's why we call it Castaña Urbana. Brewed with blue corn. Again, nice, sessionable 5% lager. A little bit more malt sweetness. A little bit more hops there, but overall just very sessionable.
I think this honestly might be my favorite at this moment. This might be my favorite one that I've tasted thus far. Like you mentioned, with that little bit of extra malt in there.
Yeah.
Trying to give it that a little extra character that my own personal palate, I actually really like that one. And the can, for the season that we're in and all that kind of stuff.
It's basically commemorating the Day of the Dead. So it kind of fits that that theme. Also, a little bit from a branding perspective, a little bit outside of our regular lineup. I like the graphics too.
The graphics are nice. I mean, there's
and stands out quite a bit.
I mean, it almost screams, "You better buy me." When you look at it on a shelf, I mean, it's festive. I will, and you guys can quote me on this, I will be leaving here with some of this beer if it's at all possible. So that's for record. And since I've said it on a recording, I think that it might be legally binding. But I'm not a lawyer, so. But yeah, I mean, yeah, it's a fun can. It's a fun beer. It's extremely drinkable. I mean, extremely drinkable.
Yeah, I mean, you definitely get more malt, get a little bit more hops.
See, I think all of these beers are for somebody who really only drinks, the big guys, and they're like, nah, not that they're afraid of craft beer, but I guess they really are, whether they say it or not. I think everything I've tasted up to this point, you're like the gateway drug. You're the gateway drug to a different location. So it's like, hey man, try this. It's like, oh, well, I'm still very comfortable with this, just like, oh yeah, we'll try this one. Okay, well, yeah, I'm still comfortable. And by the end of the session, they'll be drinking STL IPA, and then like, wow, I'm still good. And like, yeah, we just kind of eased you in. Now you're hooked.
I mean, I'm definitely a fan of drinkable, sessionable beers. If I want to sit down and have a few, I prefer something that I can enjoy a few of, and I appreciate stronger beers, and I appreciate double box, and I appreciate very strong IPAs, but for the most part, I just want to enjoy beer and just kind of be part of an evening or sit down dinner with friends. So it's nice to be able to enjoy those.
Yeah, I think, and I'm assuming it just sounds like you kind of feel the same way I do on a list of. I could probably drink a pint of most anything. The question is, am I going to drink a second pint at that point?
Absolutely, a second or a third. That's kind of the. To me, that's a sign of quality, or that's a sign of how successful we were as a brewer. Does the beer drinker that chose beer number one, are they going to come back and have a second or third one?
I mean, it took me 5 years, but I came back. So
they work.
And you know what? So my friends, and I'm in town for a wedding. They came down and visited us last year in Florida, and I was like, "Hey, make sure you guys bring some stuff." So so we had some Schnickel Fritz, we had some Zwickel. I think maybe not this last time, but I think the time before when they came down, they brought some wing nut, which the wing nut was one of my. I was like, wow, I kind of like that. I guess nutty flavor, but and that's where I found out personally that I was like, I kind of like the nutty flavor in a beer, and I was like, I like that. That was I didn't realize what it was when I would have a beer like that, and I was like, oh, that's one of those things I like. Extremely drinkable, but like I said, gateway drug. So after trying these three, that's something you could say, okay, you like those, try this, and I guarantee you, if you do it in the right order, you're gonna get somebody who was die hard, only drinking one thing. You just baby step them in, and
I mean that's if that's what we can do, that's great. I mean, when we have people come to our place, we basically train our bartenders, and they know how to ask questions. What do you usually drink? If people aren't sure what they want to order, and they kind of give them samples and see if that works, and hopefully they'll find something that they enjoy.
I don't think that's going to be a hard thing to do. I mean, I've been to places and I've been like, well, I know that was a good effort, guys. Like, I mean, like that's, thumbs up, but no, I mean, legitimately, I've consumed many of these beers many times, and once again, still not disappointed. So,
well, that's good.
So I mean, not that my opinion means much, but who knows? Maybe one day I'll be someone of note, and you'll be like, wow, that guy likes my beer, Or maybe I'll always be a nobody, and I'm still happy as long as I can drink beer, I'll be happy, right?
That works.
So as long as my family and my beer loves me, we're good to go. So now we're moving down the line.
Yeah, this is not a statement on the lineup of the beers. I just kind of try to present them from kind of lighter tasting to a little bit more strong flavored. So we're gonna move to Schnickelfritz, the German-style wheat beer, Bavarian-style wheat beer. So that's brewed with a very classic Bavarian wheat beer strain.
Oh, yeah.
Definitely is cloudy.
Definitely a wheat beer.
About 50% wheat malt. And the aroma is quite different from what we've tried so far.
Definitely. I mean, it's
definitely some fruity, maybe a hint of banana, maybe a little bit of clove. Very, very flavorful.
Yeah, I can get that. When you mentioned, I couldn't picture what, but when you said clove, that's. I was like, there's a. And you said clove, and I was like,
spicy,
that was it. That was it.
In terms of the flavor, it's still relatively light. It's about 5% alcohol. Has a little bit of sweetness, maybe a little tartness. That yeast ferments out pretty quick and produces a little bit more tartness, but overall very sessionable, very drinkable again.
Yeah. I would say the slight tartness just toward the end, like right in the middle of the tongue, toward the end of it is where I get it. Yeah, and it's not in any way tart. I don't want to give a false belief that it's a tart beer, but no, it just gives it's a character. It has character.
It's part of that flavor profile basically. That yeast produces just a little bit more organic acids that kind of gives it that slightly tartar flavor, but it's certainly not a Berliner Weiss. We make those as well, but this is not a sour beer. It's a very traditional Bavarian style wheat beer, I guess.
And when you say sour beer, I know I promised I would stay on topic, but have you noticed, this is something like, we'll say 5 years ago, not that I'd never heard of, but for the most part, you didn't find a sour as a style of beer out there. Have you noticed that that's becoming more and more common in the last little bit of time?
Yeah, it definitely seems that way. As I mentioned, we make a Berliner Weiss, and that's pretty popular. We're actually going to bring that back fairly soon in cans because people are asking for it. That's kind of interesting because it's not a flavor. Sour is not a flavor that people typically go for, but I think the refreshing aspect gives it.
Always give me that little bite, like right in the back of my jaw. Like that to me is one of those. I can definitely have one of those,
but not too many.
But not too many of those. That for me, that flavor profile. On that same note, I can definitely have at least one of these.
It's great summer beer. We're probably just out of season for this.
But now, you know what? I live in Florida, so I live in summer. So, which is really bad because we were talking. I was talking to a brewery down in Florida, and just based on what he was telling me, he said our water had a lot of iron. The water they were using there had a lot of iron in it. He said works really well for a lot of darker beers and a lot of stouts. And I was like, well, and stout, when you think, hey, it's December and I'm wearing shorts and t-shirt, you're not like, hey, let's go get a stout, guys. So it's like, he's like, our water's really good, just almost out of the tap, really good for stouts. I mean, he has to, strip it down and rebuild it. But that's kind of, I just kind of thought that was hilarious that our water's really good for making stouts. And I was like, that's good to know. So we'll see no stouts whatsoever coming from here. But if you wanted one, they could make a quality one just based on the water's profile.
I mean, I guess that's how that worked. Beer was brewed with the water that was present in whatever location breweries were located at. And that's why dark Munich Dunkels were popular in Munich because water's hard and that beer style worked there. So
yeah, and we have a lot of mineral content in the water just where I'm from in Central Florida. I don't know the reasoning why. I'm not. I mean, I do have a friend. He is a self-admitted water nerd, and he could tell me all about why and why not. But yeah, as far as that goes, like I believe it. I believe we have hard water. I can tell.
Yeah, water chemistry is quite fascinating, but not many people are going to be interested in that. I would imagine.
And I would think that there's probably a niche podcast out there that could really have an entire few episodes on water. But like you said, maybe not the biggest following. But I would be interested. I mean, I'm kind of a dummy when it comes to the water. I've done some brewing, and I pretty much just run it through a really good filter, and I don't play with the water whatsoever. So it's what I've got is what I've got, in the end. So that's kind of where I'm at with the water. So I don't really have the water knowledge, nor do I have the setup to even really play with it too much. Well done with the Schnickelfritz, and like I said, I've had quite a few of these, and I can see some more.
More in the future?
Yeah. I'll probably be bringing home. You got a variety pack available here?
We don't, but I'm sure I can hook you up with a few beers.
You hear that? I'm gonna
cooler.
And it's weird because I brought literally brought a suitcase with me that I can tell you there's some beer when I depart. All right, so we've had some Schnickel Fritz, and we're coming here toward the end of the line. We've got a beautiful green can here, which you guys heard that.
Definitely enjoy the look of the can. I think that's very fitting. You can already tell the beer's a lot darker compared to the
look at that
lagers we've had.
And right now, I mean, how far are we? 15, 18 inches from my face right now?
Something like that.
And I got, just my nose just went.
The hop aroma.
I got some hop right there.
Yeah, so this is our STL IPA or Stalipa, very, I guess, classic double IPA or stronger IPA at this point.
And where are we sitting on alcohol for this particular beer?
About 8.5.
8.5. Oh, you're not even kidding about some stronger right there.
Yeah, it's definitely up there.
So we were just driving through a school zone with all these previous beers, and then he immediately got on the interstate and gunned it. That's pretty much what he just did here.
It's nice hop aroma in there for sure. Definitely some bitterness, a little balance from the malt. Get some of those dark malts.
I would say with the nose on it, I mean the aroma. I mean, definitely we've got that great hoppy smell on it. But even though you mentioned the higher ABV, but it still drinks fairly light for what it is. You telling me what's in there? You said 8 point. What was the number there?
Yeah, a little over 8%. Yeah,
8%. I mean, I would have guessed 6.5, just guessing, but. Yeah, so this is going to sneak up on me as far as that goes. I mean,
it definitely after. I like that beer quite a bit as well, and also enjoy it at home. But yeah, you can definitely tell after one can.
You
definitely know that you've just had one of those.
There's no denying it at that. Well, another thing too. I mean, these are large cans. These aren't your 12 ounces. So not only are you getting that, you're getting a full pint if you buy a can here. Sorry, not if. When you buy a can here, when you stop on down, you're going to want to get one of these. I'm pretending like I have real sway over people's decisions. I mean, speak it into existence. I don't know. We'll see what happens there. I love that smell. I mean, my personal flavor profile, I don't drink a lot of IPAs. And as far as that goes, the smell, though, I love that smell. That, being from Florida, you get a little bit of citrusy, so it's like, it makes me think of being in Florida. Even though hops aren't necessarily a huge crop down in Florida, I still get that it makes me think like, oh, grapefruit and grass and, like the things that remind me of being home, So it's like, but, and the flavor's just, I mean, this is really nice. This drinks really well.
We definitely Cascade is a hop variety that's very classic IPA, American IPA, or American Pale Ale. That gives you that kind of citrusy note, and we use quite a bit of that in this beer. And I think the grassy note maybe come from a couple other varieties, but it's the citrusy notes I think that really stand out.
Yeah, I really like that. Yeah, and just talking to you a little bit offline. We mentioned where a lot of your spent grain goes to feed the livestock. So what I'm understanding is we've got a lot of happy livestock here.
Happy livestock. Yeah, we've got a few farmers that we don't send it to them. They come pick it up, and we actually some of the meat that we actually reuse, so the meat comes back to us, and we use it in our kitchen. So it's kind of
that's beautiful.
Full circle.
That's very beautiful. Well done. Well done. This is delicious. So once again, I'm sitting here, 4465 Manchester Avenue, St. Louis, Missouri. We have a beautiful location, old building put to what I would say is possibly God's work. Don't quote anybody else on that one. That was all me there. But so we've got a beautiful location, beautiful building. We even have a pool table. I'm staring at a pool table right here with the Urban Chestnut Brewing Company logo right in the middle of it. I don't even work for Urban Chestnut, but I wouldn't mind a pool table like that. Just, and I'm not even good at pool, but you know what? That would be pretty baller to have in my house. So I know we've got some. We just missed by a very short period of time. We missed an Oktoberfest you guys did. Was that at the other location?
That's at the other location. Yeah. That's kind of where we close off the street. There's a circus tent that's 2 blocks away. We are allowed to use that, so that's part of the celebration. We've got our beer garden there. We put up a stage, live music, bunch of tables, various stations where we serve food and beer. So it's quite a big event. We estimate over 20,000 people that we get over the weekend. So it's
get the heck out of here.
It's quite a big production.
Man, 5 years is quite a difference from when I was here. I mean, I was here probably one of the first Oktoberfest they had there, and I tried to make every one that I could because beer, But yeah, it's great. You guys are growing. You've got all these locations. You had that event. I'm hearing we've got an anniversary coming up in late January.
We do, and it happens to be my exact birthday. So we actually opened the brewery on my birthday 9 years ago. And it just happens to be the Sunday that we have the festival is my birthday again. We won't say which one.
I mean, you're at least 9 years old. We know that for sure. He's a minimum of 9 years old here.
Well, plus X, I guess. Yeah.
So we've got a 9+-year-old sitting here making delicious beer, deciding, hey, we're going to do it. So this is going to be January 26th, and that's going to be located at this location
here at the Grove location. So we basically open up the brewery. We have couple dozen, maybe more local breweries that we invite. Basically all the local breweries, they get to bring a couple beers, so people that come here can get in and try various beers. We have music, we have food, and they also get to see the brewery, basically line everything up following the process. So you get to go into the fermentation area, the packaging hall, and so on. So it's kind of quite a big event. Not quite as big as Oktoberfest, but it's a nice Sunday afternoon with beer and music and food.
Nice. So you mentioned the food. So you've got a pretty good little selection here, and I have tasted a few things on the menu. What's one of your favorites on the menu that you've got?
I think I'd have to go with the pizza. That's really fantastic. Our chefs are great. We make a lot of stuff from scratch. So we make sauerkraut, we make mustard, we make our own bread, we make pizza from scratch. And but the pizza they basically ferment the dough overnight. It's really well done, and I really enjoy the pizza, I have to say.
I mean, fermentation going along with other fermentation. If I could do a podcast about something other than beer, I mean, pizza might be up there on the list. So I mean, it's probably because they go together like beer and pizza. I mean that's the original starter culture. We used a beer yeast to start that up, so in a way it's very closely related to. Oh wow! So they're cousins here. Your pizza and your beer are they're in the same family.
They're very closely linked. Yeah,
that's amazing. So, well, I do appreciate all of the pairings you've got here with the amazing food, with the beer. The beer is delicious, delicious as always. I mean, honestly, I haven't been back here in quite some time, and it's. And honestly, when I learned about beer, this city was probably my earliest really step into craft brewing. So it's in a lot of ways it's like coming back home, So thanks for being part of that return back home.
Thanks for visiting, and thanks for coming back.
So maybe in a springtime sometime we'll talk again, and we'll talk about some warmer weather beers or something like that. And
sounds good. We'll have a few things that are there. They were already lining up, so definitely stuff to talk about.
Beautiful. So, well, thank you very much. And if you guys have any questions whatsoever, just come on in. We've got multiple locations. If you ever thought like, hey, should I be a professional beer drinker? You've got the URB next door, and you can be part of a research and development team. You can put it on your resume if you'd like. And then we've got the Urban Chestnut location here, 4465 Manchester Avenue, St. Louis, Missouri, 63110. We have my old homeschool one, my old school home brew. Yeah, that's what I meant. My old school home brewery. That's the 3229 Washington Avenue, St. Louis, Missouri, 63103. You can find them at urbanchestnut.com. And thanks again.
Thank you.
And always remember, if it wasn't for beer, you wouldn't be here.